Alright, if you are watching a replay, go ahead and fast forward to about 90 seconds. That's when the real conversation will begin. We already got people jumping on. That is amazing. What is up? Vito. What's going on? We are up live, dub. Hey, real quick, can you just double check that you can hear me? Just real quick, just give me a thumbs up. You know, yep, we hear your voice. That's all I need. I'm just making sure that YouTube is running healthy. We got Periscope up. Beautiful. We got Periscope up. We've got Twitter up. And now we have YouTube up. There we go. There we go. Man, what a day. This is going to be fun. Wait on Michael Schwartz, and then we're going to really talk. We're going to break down. Michael's the best, man. If you guys have heard him before, dude just knows what he is talking about. I love talking future draft picks with this guy. He's the man. Oh man, so many other things have going on today. 50th anniversary, Jason Kidd fired, lineup change. I haven't seen yet what that is. I want to make that note real quick. We're going to start here in about 10 seconds. If you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and please give a couple hearts. Tyronn Lue should be fired already. I've never been a fan of his. The Cleveland Cavaliers just have no clue how to hire a head coach that knows how to deal with LeBron, I guess, or talent in general. If you guys could please just retweet, please share, text everybody, go, yo, we're going up to tip-off, Valley of the Suns Live. We're going to talk some draft. We're talking about a bunch of other stuff. I'm waiting on Michael here, but that's not a problem. And please give me some hearts and let's rock and roll. So welcome to Valley of the Suns Live, the weekly edition. My name is Adam Maines. I am your host, site editor, and friend in the sun. So hey, we've got to open up with happy birthday, Phoenix Suns. You're looking mighty fine for 50, I gotta say. The Suns are 50 years old today. You know, it's the 50th season, and actually, you know, it's the day. This was the day that the NBA officially gave the Suns the deeds to a team. I don't know exactly. I suppose it's the deed to a team. I'm not exactly sure what that term is, but today is the actual day where the Suns. We're looking terrible. I don't know. The Suns are looking pretty young for 50. They look pretty good. They're looking svelte. You know, I mean, just lose a couple more pounds, i.e., you know, big contracts, and this roster is going to be looking awesome. What is up? Who is that? Oh, Alex. Nice. That's fake news. I'll cut it out. This is real news. What's up, buddy? So yeah, happy 50th birthday. I mean, I have a lot of memories. Truthfully, I have 25 years of memories. My first, the season I first paid attention. What's up? The season I first paid attention to the Phoenix Suns was 92-93. Ironically, I have an aunt that used to work for them. And worked in the Coliseum, and then moved the franchise to the America West Arena, as it was so called. No kid. I mean, I did tweet earlier, I'd love him, exactly, I did too. I'd love Kidd back as a backup point guard. I mean, if he's feeling like, yeah, I can run 40 games, you know, why not? Get him in shape. My first ever game, though, if I recall the date correctly, it was December 27th, 1992. The Phoenix Suns played the Denver Nuggets here in Phoenix. They won 129-88, 41 points, largest blowout in franchise history to date. That was the day that I noticed the Suns for the first time. Like, I'd heard of them. I mean, I'd seen stuff, but I mean, I just wasn't into basketball until my aunt got my dad and I tickets to that game by whatever chance to happen to that game. Suns win by 41, and the story goes that several weeks later, or maybe a year later, was, you know, very soon after, I was supposed to be in bed. It was a school night. And my dad hears the radio on in my room, and he opens the door and he's like, Adam, you're supposed to be in bed. And he goes, and apparently I go, shh, the Suns are winning. So I've been hooked. No crap, that is your first ever game? 129-88, Denver? I believe it was December 27th. It was 92, it was either 26th or 27th. Let's see, 2, 3, Phoenix. No crap, that is your that is your first ever game? That is amazing. Out of curiosity, I gotta know, and we're gonna move on here in a second, but I'm just blown away by this this peculiarity of life. Do you still have the tickets? I don't have my tickets, and I regret it. It was December 27th, and you live in Jamaica. That blows my mind. Yeah, it was December 27th, so I had the date right. I'm just curious if you had the ticket. I'm assuming like my dad had those tickets and they just didn't get saved. So I've actually been checking eBay for years to find any random 2 tickets. Yeah, I seriously, if I can find tickets to that game, I will buy them on eBay. So anyway, today's the 50th anniversary. That is my first experience, literally 25 years ago. I was 9. I was 9 at the time. Yeah, I just went with my dad. So then another news, and it was just referenced here moments ago. The Milwaukee Bucks traded. Oh, Schwartz messaged me and he says he's showing him offline. Let me see real quick. He's our special guest. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Come on, where do I go? Oh, hold on. There we go. All right, maybe I will call him. There we go. Let's see if this works. There we go.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. That's what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I don't know why it shows that I'm online, so I apologize.
Okay, I don't know. Mine was messed up. I think it might have been showing I was offline, but I thought I was online. But in any case,
oddly enough, it does show that you are offline. So, but we're able to connect. So, whatever.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, so I just started. I was just kind of sharing today's episode. The Suns is, by the way, everybody, if you hear a voice, that is Michael Schwartz. He is the founder of Valley of the Suns, the Godfather, or actually, I suppose the true father. And I love having him on. I introduced you or referenced your coming on a few minutes ago, and I love talking, especially college guys, because you've got such a wealth of knowledge, and it's just a blast to discuss and talk about who the Suns might get. So we have Kurt saying hi, Michael. Crispy says hi, Boss Man. So we've got some fans. But real quick,
man, I like it.
I was just sharing some today, obviously being the 50th anniversary of the Suns. My first game, and literally was the day that I kind of fell in love with the team, was December 27th, 1992. The Suns played the Denver Nuggets and won in Phoenix, 129-88, 41-point blowout, at the time largest win in franchise history. And we actually have a fan here that was his very first game too, which just blows my mind. I mean, that's kind of the coolest coincidence in the universe here.
Yeah.
Do you have a moment like, I don't know if I've ever asked you, like, how old were you or what, what catalyzed your love in the Suns?
Mine was actually the same season. You said December 92?
Yeah, it was the 92-93, the Barkley first
game. Yeah. So mine was Game 5 of the first round in 93.
Yes.
I remember going out to lunch and the whole city shut down and we all went to my grandparents' place and watched the game. And when the game started, I didn't really care about basketball. And by the time the overtime ended, I was hooked, and I've been hooked ever since. Then remember the Barkley shot over Robinson in the next round, and Game 7 over the Sonics, and then, of course, the Bulls' 6-game series loss. So it was definitely that game, that series, and from there, the rest is history.
Oh, man. And you know what? That's what's so unfortunate about this recent, now going on 8-year stretch of non-playoff participation is how many kids that could have fallen in love, had that moment to fall in love with the Suns for the past 8 years, they're not, or it'll take a lot longer. Whereas there's obviously so many of us that were in that prime position in 92, 93 to just, be hooked for life.
Exactly.
So, unfortunately, there's still plenty of fans who fell in love with Steve Nash. So, it's not like it's just, been nothing since Barkley. But, anyway, so, and then the other thing, not quite Suns related. We got a fan here that says, my first game was Game 7 against LA in 06. Or 08, he says. That's awesome.
06.
Oh, it wasn't 06.
The 3-1 comeback.
Yeah. I was actually in California. I sung in choir. Let's pull back the curtain a little bit. I sung in choir in college, and it was in California during Game 7. It was following it the night of a concert we did at some church somewhere. But that's kind of the little memory I've got with that. But then Jason Kidd on other news was fired today. Truthfully, surprisingly. I personally had not heard or seen it.
Really, I actually wasn't surprised.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing Buck's Twitter, and I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about what a terrible job he's done. They're clearly underachieving. Their Vegas over under was 47.5 wins. They're on pace for 42 wins right now.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, a team with as much talent as Milwaukee has should not be eighth in the East and just fighting to stay in the playoff picture. They should, in my opinion, be easily top five. Not terribly creative offensively, and it sounds like some butting heads with management with some of the reports we've gotten out. So maybe a little surprised it happened now, but I certainly thought before next season started he for sure would be gone, and not terribly surprised that it happened now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I personally hadn't seen anything that made it seem like it was imminent. So then when that broke, I was, and especially the irony of today being the 50th anniversary for both teams to make that change on this day. I suppose use the birthday as a clean slate, I guess, and just kind of move on. But a lot of people are asking, they asked immediately, should the Suns go after Kidd as a head coach? And personally,
No.
I'd prefer him as a backup point guard, honestly, right now. Does he still have the mobility to be able to get up and down the court for like 30 games and just get us through the end of the season?
And I think with some of the bad exits that have happened with some players, certainly the Morai among several others, that's the last thing this franchise needs.
Yeah,
is a Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would stay very far away from him.
I see him in terms of coaching style. I suppose I kind of see him, and maybe I shouldn't say style, but persona. Is like Scott Skiles. I mean, I remember Skiles being. I mean, he was like a drill sergeant, and so I mean, and I know a lot of people were pretty happy with by '96 the firing of there was Westfall, and then Cotton retires, and then Danny Ainge, and I guess Westfall and Ainge were kind of like country club head coaches, and so a lot of people are like, hey, let's turn the tables, and the Suns have underachieved. Let's go with Skiles, who's going to be a little bit more of a drill sergeant. I kind of see Kidd that way, and it makes me wonder if maybe they were both, obviously Skiles being 20 years ago, but they were both kind of head coaches in the wrong generations. Maybe if they'd been there in the 70s and the 80s, somehow they would have been more successful, and at the same time, maybe they just weren't good head coaches.
Right.
So, all right, well, would you like to talk a little college basketball?
Of course.
So I have before me the Bleacher Report mock draft of about 6 days ago. I really couldn't find one that I liked that was more recent, but I mean, this is going to do. And they kind of surprised me with their first pick. They have, of course, in order, I'll just kind of preface this with Atlanta number 1, and obviously this is all fluid, but Orlando 2, Sacramento 3, Memphis 4, Dallas 5, and then Philly is 6, and then the Suns are 7th. So right now the Suns are actually tied for 8th if my math is correct. But regardless, they're not in the top 5 just yet. That still could happen.
But it's so close.
It's super close. Oh yeah, and they're so much closer to the first overall, having the first draft pick than they are to having the 8th seed in the playoffs. So, yes. I mean, it. 1 5-game slide, and a couple teams ahead of them win, and all of a sudden, boom, they're 2nd or 3rd. But they did surprise me in this mock draft by predicting that Atlanta at this moment would take DeAndre Ayton. And I only say that's a surprise because for so long it has been Luka Doncic, and then with the meteoric rise of Trae Young, it seems like he's kind of, at least from the fan, excuse me, boy, I'm 16 again. From the fans' kind of point of view, it seems like Trae Young has just become the superstar, and so it makes you wonder, especially Atlanta, if they want to move on, from Schroeder, if maybe they want to go with point guard and trade Schroeder. Anyway, so DeAndre Ayton though could be off the board right off the bat, and that would be interesting because I personally kind of like the Suns, no matter where they're picking, to go big, and having the opportunity to maybe take that guy who's currently averaging 19.7 points, 11.1 rebounds would be spectacular. So what do you think, number 1 overall pick, regardless who's selecting there, what do you think about DeAndre Ayton going 1st overall?
I mean, I'm a U of A guy, so he's the one guy of all the prospects who I've actually seen a whole lot of. My first thought on him is the number one skill that translates from college to the pros is rebounding,
Oh, yeah.
and he's a dominant college rebounder. And you just watch between the size, how he boxes guys out, he just vacuums up, and of course the athleticism, he vacuums up every rebound. So I'm completely positive he's going to be a really good rebounder. Then he's got the shooting touch. Right now it's just a mid-range jumper, but he's hit a couple of threes, and you figure if he works on it, he's a guy who can eventually hit some threes. He can block shots. I'm surprised that some guys who aren't nearly as athletic as him do score on him once in a while.
Yeah.
But the instincts, the skills are all there, even if the instincts aren't quite there. He's got all the tools. He can even pass it a little bit. When teams have double teamed him and thrown all sorts of wonky zones, he's done a real nice job of finding people. Essentially, he has absolutely every skill you would want. If you were to build a perfect big man, this is what you're building. A DeAndre Ayton, 7 feet, 250, 260 of pure muscle, and he hasn't even been playing the game that long. So he's the one guy who I'm real certain is going to be a really good player for a really long time.
Do you have a current NBA comp that might really excite some fans?
I mean, I think Joel Embiid is the one you'd have to say without the injuries. Yeah. I think physically he seems a lot like David Robinson was back in his youth.
Oh.
But just when you consider an all-around big man who really does everything. I mean, he's obviously not quite the three-point shooter that Embiid is right now, but then again, Embiid wasn't a three-point shooter at all in college. No. So he's already a more proficient shooter than him there. I don't know if he's going to be this huge high usage kind of guy that Embiid is right now. But no, I do think he'll be able to stretch. But as far as a big guy who literally does everything, a unicorn, so to speak, I think that Embiid is probably the best comparison right now.
And the fascinating thing is that I've got Embiid's college stats up here, too. He blows, Ayton, that is, Embiid's stats away. Embiid averaged 11.2 points, 8 point. Well, okay, let's see. That's only 23 minutes a game, but 11.2 points, 8.1 rebounds. If we were to look at per 40, 19.4 points and 14 rebounds, compared to Ayton, which is 24.7, and then 14 equal. So actually, Ayton's just a better scorer. But again, he does at that 3-point shot. He's only made 8 baskets so far. Embiid.
But again, that's a lot, Sean Miller.
Yeah.
That's just not what he's asked to do with U of A.
Yeah.
And it's not his biggest strength. But he has taken what's his percentage?
I opened up Trae Young. His percentage is 32. He has 8 of 25. Okay. Which, 25, he made 8. That's not
terrible,
bad.
But you can see it's a shot that he can develop.
Yeah.
I think he eventually can become a league average 3-point shooter. Still probably won't ever be a ton of volume, but it's nice that a guy who can do all these other things. Oh, and by the way, he can also shoot threes.
Yeah. And, and that's
the
NBA. That's the NBA today, and that's
exactly
what so many teams are desperate to find. I mean, that's truthfully what makes Dragon Bender and Marquise Chris, for that matter, but Bender in particular, such an interesting prospect, is that he can't step back and shoot threes. I'm not 100% positive what his average is at this moment, but he's been hovering around 40%.
Yeah, especially of late, he's been a lot better.
Yeah, I mean that shot, it has kind of flattened out again. I've noticed, and I've commented about this. Just speaking of Bender briefly, I've kind of noticed that as a starter, he seems to press a little bit more, and he might just not be quite as comfortable with the starters' minutes and that unit and what have you. Even though he does get a lot of time with those guys, but it just seems like he's kind of pressed a little bit. Boy, when that thing really just starts to arc up and get and fall, he's going to be a dynamic stretch center. So yeah, DeAndre Ayton again. I mean, he's, if not him, for the Suns in particular, I guess Marvin Bagley, in my opinion, would be my second choice for the Suns. Again, I just want the Suns to go big, is just kind of my thing. And I've written too that, of course, if Ryan McDonough were to believe that, say, Trae Young and Marvin Bagley are equal, then I leave it up to his discretion. I mean, my intention is to go power forward there. If he does believe that, say, Trae Young projects to be slightly better, then I say, go with the best player. I definitely don't want anything to don't want any great talent to be left on the board because you were hoping. So, but in this case, if the Suns got Ayton, it'd be that homegrown product that's always a fun story. I mean, it didn't work out for Mario Bennett. It kind of worked out for Eddie House for a year. But to be able to bring Ayton and keep him here, that would be.
And that's a really interesting element. I was actually talking to my producer on The Jump, Danny Corrales, who's a former U of A guy as well as I am, and he thinks just having a U of A guy in that market would even open up so many more fans to the Suns across the state, particularly in Tucson, and obviously a ton of Suns fans or a ton of U of A fans who are in the Valley. Just to have not just a U of A player, but a star, perhaps the most talented player that's ever played for U of A, which I personally think to be the case, to have him also be a star for the Suns would really make the Suns all of Arizona's team.
Are they not in Tucson? I wasn't aware that there was.
They are with some people. I mean, with Corrales in particular, not exactly a Suns fan, but there's a lot of people who I'd say are more just U of A fans, or so than Suns fans. So yeah, I mean, of course, Suns are the only team in the state, so the vast majority of people are Suns fans.
Sure.
Besides all those Laker fans that we always see at the games.
Aye.
But I think just having that a U of A player who's one of your top 2 or 3, probably 2 players on your team would do a lot. And I'm sure Robert Sarver, a U of A guy, would love to have that as well. And now, you're not drafting a guy just because he goes to U of A, but we're talking about such an incredible prospect, a guy who could go number 1 overall in a lot of years.
Yeah.
I think that would do a lot for the fan base. So I think that while it doesn't mean everything, it's not insignificant either to bring in a guy who went to U of A. I'm sure we've got ASU people here who are saying the exact opposite.
Oh, but, I'm a Devil, but I'm also a Suns fan. So I mean, I would take a U of A guy. And I will say, I mentioned 2 former Sun Devils, and I actually did leave out probably the biggest former Wildcat to play for the Suns, and that would be Channing Frye. Yes, Channing Frye did have a good solid career. I as somebody who has had some heart problems in my life, I was scared for Channing when he had his heart issues, and I'm very happy that the guy's healthy and still playing. So somebody just asked, what would be a lineup if the Suns got Bagley? I'll tell you what, I will answer. We will answer that question, but we're going to go in order. I didn't catch what it was. It started to fade away too quickly, but we'll definitely. But to that point, real quick, let's say for the sake of argument, Michael, that the Suns got Ayton. He plays forward, but he's 7'1". He plays.
Well, no, he's a center.
He is a center. Okay.
I mean, at U of A, you've got. U of A is just playing their best 5 players. It's best 5 players. So
it has to be the college.
You have Dusan Ristic, who is a really good college center. So I mean, Ristic and Ayton are 2 of your best 5 players. So they play together, and just because Ristic is as pure of a center as it gets, Ayton's officially listed as a power forward. But let's be honest, U of A is playing 2 centers.
Yeah.
At the next level, DeAndre Ayton will be a center on all 30 teams pretty much. So on the Suns, there's no question he's a center. I think you could put either Chris or Bender with him at the power forward spot, and possibly eventually hope to have the 3 of them kind of be your big man rotation.
That would be fantastic.
So I think that he would be a real nice fit positionally as well. And he would solve all your long-term center problems.
Oh, yeah. He would be the center that Jerry Colangelo seeked for 35 years, too.
Or 50 years.
Yeah, 50, exactly. So I do want to point out...
This is the 50th anniversary of the Suns not having a true center.
Exactly. Make it happen. I do want to point out DeAndre Ayton, his best game as a college athlete so far, I would believe, would be 23 points and 19 boards against Arizona State. So he does have a couple other very good games, but I look at that one. I see 27-14 against North Carolina State. Still not as big a deal as ASU, especially because ASU at that time was ranked third.
Yes.
But
and granted, ASU doesn't have the size.
No, and that's what's
that was especially having the matchup with Ristich as well. That was certainly a mismatch. But good to see him in what at that point really has been the biggest game of the year for U of A so far. A game, starting out the Pac-12 season, really needed to win.
Yep.
And he was awesome in that game.
Yep, it was incredibly disheartening.
Yeah.
All right, so according to Bleacher Report, the number 2 overall pick to the Orlando Magic would be Trae Young. Well, we mentioned him earlier. The guy, again, he's almost, I shouldn't say come out of nowhere because freshmen usually come out of nowhere, but he wasn't really kind of considered initially in those preseason mock drafts with these other big names, in particular the other big name guard, Luka Doncic, who we'll get to soon. But they have the Orlando Magic taking Trae Young, and certainly that would not be a bad upgrade for them. Young, of course, is averaging an incredible 30.5 points per game, 9.7 assists, 4.2 boards. He just had a 40-point game, which I believe was his third 40-point game. He had 43 against Oregon. He had 43 against TCU, and then he just had 48 against Oklahoma State. The guy, he's fantastic. He's a turnover machine. And actually, let me get his turnover average here.
Again, that's a lot because of the usage
and
how he's pretty much the whole team.
The whole team, yeah.
Not to say he won't be high turnover in the pros, but I mean, James Harden and Stephen Curry are 2 of the highest turnover guys in the pros. So
and in Suns history, Jason Kidd, was a high turnover guy, and I would, those quadruple
Nash was high turnover.
Nash, and see, I'm trying to say usage is 40%. I mean, that's
incredible,
unbelievable. But he's still putting the ball in the basket for a guy who's he missed a ton of shots in that last game too. He did. But for a guy who is high usage, who is taking so many shots, he's unbelievably still shooting just a hair under 50% from 2 and just a hair under 40% from 3. And he's shooting NBA threes. The ESPN retweeted several of those long 3-pointers just over his last game was on Saturday that were just like, dude looks like Steph Curry. So is he the 2nd overall pick, or is that even too low?
I mean, I think it's going to depend on who has the picks, and I'm still a Doncic guy. Yeah. We'll get to soon.
Yes.
I think he's certainly in the race for the top couple of picks when you consider where the game's going and when you consider what a guy who can shoot from 30 feet consistently does to the spacing. Obviously, you see with the Warriors and Curry, and even as great as they are with so many All-Stars, the Warriors are without a question better when Steph Curry is out on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
That's been proven time and time again. So he's a guy, when you look at the Suns fit, a Booker, a Trae Young lineup would be dynamic.
Whew.
When you'd have 2 guys, I mean, Booker will be 22 next year, 2 guys 22 and under. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really would be the next Splash Brothers.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
So, I mean, when you consider what they both could do as kind of co-ball handlers and with all that shooting, defensively is another story. I don't know how they'll guard other teams' backcourts, but that would be incredibly dynamic.
They would score so many points, and Booker isn't and I think what really would separate the 2 of them from the current Splash Brothers is the fact that Booker isn't just an outside shooter. I mean, he's such a great driver, and he uses his size and his length to post, to get in the lane. That in itself will open up those 35-foot threes for Trae Young. I mean, he doesn't need to shoot from 35, but it seriously would. And as Booker sucks Young's defender in. So yeah, that would be an awesome show to watch. If they could stop anybody, they'd win a lot of games, but they'd probably still win a lot of games just flatly outscoring the opponent.
And it would be like the good old days with the Suns where they'd just be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, they would eventually become certainly a playoff team. Building a championship caliber defense would certainly be difficult, but you would hope that Jackson and Bender, and you'd probably need a really good defensive center to be at the heart of that.
Well, maybe when the Warriors kind of fall apart, the Suns can steal Kerr back and just say, hey, come home. Come back to Arizona, head coach the Suns. All right, so number 3 on this list by Bleacher Report, Sacramento Kings select Luka Doncic. And he is your favorite, and he has consistently been my favorite as well. I have his Basketball Reference Euro stats up here. I'm not 100% sure like how they're updated. I don't know if they're literally up to date, but they have him through 35 games. It doesn't say how many started. I'm not quite sure if he's a starter yet, but 15. Oh, yeah. He is a starter. Is that?
Yeah, I mean he's one of the maybe the best player in EuroLeague this year.
15.8 points, 5.6 boards, 4.6 assists. In terms of 3-point shooting, 33.1, which is actually the lowest of his career. EuroLeague 15-16 he shot 40%, then last year 35%, and this year 33%. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. He's taking more shots, but and
this is in 25 minutes a game.
Yes, yeah, he's averaging 25 minutes, 3.2 of 1.7 of 5.1. So
if you look at the per 36 minutes, it's 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 6.7 assists. So you're talking about a guy who's an elite rebounder for his position, still a really good assist guy, and then he's dropping 23 points per 36 minutes.
Yeah, and get that 3-point shooting percentage up, back to like 37, 38, and I mean that number continues to rise. He's also at least a good free throw shooter too. He's averaging 84.3% this year, which I would take, and not that he necessarily, not that there's kind of this stigma about size. He's only 6'6", so I would expect a good free throw shooter. But so many of these guys, they're still only in the 70s, and that statistic has actually improved every year of his career as well. So yeah, he again, and it is his size. And you and I have talked about this in the past. Oh, somebody just compared him to Midwest Suns, said Hedo Turkoglu. Oh man, that would be horrible.
Much better though.
Yeah, way. I hope so. That would just be awful. But
I see it in the playmaking, bigger guard from Europe.
Yeah, well, it's for me. It would just be, he's already shown a little bit more, in my opinion. At such a young age, he's shown more of that kind of well-rounded offensive threat. And real quick, may I just hit pause? If you guys are watching live, go ahead and please retweet. Get some people on, text some friends, and be like, hey, we got another half hour before tip-off. We're going to take you guys up to tip-off LA Suns Live. Myself, Adam Ants, Michael Schwartz. We were talking potential draft picks for the Phoenix Suns. And go ahead, throw those hearts on. That rises us up in Periscope as well. Somebody put, hashtag Nash to Phoenix's coach. He doesn't want to coach. But, so, Doncic, though, my personal love and infatuation with him, and again, this is something we've discussed, is because of that size. I really don't want a small guard because I want a guy that's going to be able to shoot over the short defenders and be able to really rattle around with the big defenders. And Trae Young looks amazing. He's listed at 6'2", 180 though, and that can be very successful. I just still kind of look at that less than traditional guard, whether he plays the point or the two. I am still fine with Devin Booker playing more point guard. I just look at Doncic from that perspective, and I just love that size. If you could have a starting lineup where your point guard is 6'6" and your shooting guard is 6'7", man, that team is just going to be difficult to defend.
And the key there on the other end would be Josh Jackson being able to defend point guards, because I don't think Luka's going to be great guarding, especially the Chris Pauls of the world. Mm-hmm. So you would need JJ to become that versatile defender who can really lock down any position, in particular point guards.
Yeah. And right there, if you're able to do that, you take the defensive pressure off of both Luka and Devin, and allows them to more freely focus on offense. And to me, that is in this new positionless NBA. I think that would be the greatest advantage of drafting a guy like Luka on this team, being that you've got Josh Jackson, who we believe can guard, honestly, potentially all 5 positions, depending on how big the center is. But to be able to have that kind of flexibility would just be outstanding. And right there, going back to the Trae Young discussion, having Trae Young and Devin Booker next to each other might prove to be a defensive issue long term.
Definitely.
But if you have Luka, that shifts that defensive worry a little bit towards the middle, I suppose, and gives them the opportunity to not only be a high-powered offensive team, but then still be a viable and good defensive team.
And like the big thing to me would be the positionless stuff, because then you really wouldn't have positions. You would have co-ball handlers.
Yeah.
In Doncic and Booker, you'd have shooters all over the court. You'd have 2 playmakers, kind of like what you wanted with Dragic and Bledsoe, but guys who aren't actually point guards and who can still do a lot of things. And then Luka's still an elite rebounder for his size. Yeah. You would just have a lot of versatility and a lot of guys who could do different things. And I think that's where the league's headed, and that's why Doncic is my favorite for the selection. You could do so much mixing and matching with a Booker, Doncic, Jackson lineup.
Absolutely, and I agree. He is still my number 1. And while I've never really been a fan of drafting a point guard high, he is not traditional, and that's what I love about him and that pick. So number 4, and again, I am referencing, for those wondering, I am referencing Bleacher Report's mock draft of 6 days ago. Number 4, they've got Marvin Bagley III. And again, this goes back to having a center in DeAndre Ayton, number 1 on their list, because it pushes both Trae Young and Luka Doncic back. Well, that also then, according to Bleacher Report, pushes Marvin Bagley III back, who is also another incredibly interesting and potentially big-time NBA power forward / center. And I'm trying to find where I put his stats here. There we go. He's currently averaging very similar to Ayton, 21.9 points, 11.5 rebounds. He shoots at about the same percentage. It's incredible, Michael, how identical they are across the board here.
Yeah.
34.3% from 3. He's attempted just a couple more threes. I mean, they're right there on top of each other. His blocks are a little bit lower than Ayton. But still, you're looking at a guy in Duke. Duke is obviously going to be a highly talented team, but they're also going to play a tough schedule in the ACC. Where do you see him projecting out? Do you have any intuition on A, what kind of player he could be in the NBA, and B, what he would look like in a Phoenix Suns uniform?
I mean, again, like we were talking with Ayton with the U of A connection. I mean, Bagley's a guy who is from Phoenix, went to Corona del Sol in Tempe for a short while.
Yeah.
And, it's always great to have the hometown kid, especially you look at with LeBron. Not that he's a LeBron type.
Yeah.
Nobody's LeBron, but, this is a guy who might really want to stay in Phoenix for the long haul and not just be waiting for his rookie contract and maybe his rookie extension to end.
Yeah.
So my problem is you already have 2 lottery pick power forwards. So I'm not sure how Bender, Chris, and Bagley would all fit together per se. Because as of now, none of them are necessarily seem like they'd be ideal at center.
Yeah.
So that's my big question there. However, when we're talking about positionless basketball, Bagley is just incredibly skilled. Another guy who can kind of seem to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be a solid pick if the top 3 are off the board. Maybe that's where you go.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a perfect fit for the roster.
To your point about already having Chris and Dragon, there would likely have to be a trade made there.
Sure.
Yeah,
And that's fine. And I agree. There would have to be a trade made. And, not that you want to be so attached to the guys. I mean, if Bagley's the guy and you decide we're building around Booker and Bagley and going from there, then that's what you do. And there's no problem with that at all. But just saying where the roster currently, how it is constituted, he wouldn't be as seamless as a fit as the first three guys we talked about.
For sure. So looking at his game-to-game stats, and I'm not comparing him directly, but I am just referencing DeAndre, that is. Marvin Bagley has had 5 30-point games so far. DeAndre hasn't had any, although he did have 28 against UNLV, 29 against Alabama. So Marvin Bagley has 5 30-point games. He also has a 21-rebound game. He had a 30-20 game against Florida State on December 30th. Actually, that would have been their conference opener as well. 32 points, 21 boards. No blocks. He actually blocks a little bit less than I kind of might have anticipated with somebody with his athleticism.
Not a shot blocker for sure.
And that would be a little disappointing. Again, I mean, if he's playing power forward, I suppose you're not really, in the NBA that is, I suppose you're not really expecting a lot of blocks from the power forward position. But if he averaged 1.5, I mean, I suppose that's a good number. He's averaging 1.1 in college at the moment. But he also has 15 double-doubles. Ayton has 13, but he's got 15 double-doubles. And, just kind of up and down the line, even though you are correct, we wouldn't be the most seamless fit. You still kind of salivate over if this kid could come in and average, like 20 and 12, I guess, something to that effect. Man, that would just be, it'd be a lot like Amari Stoudemire, truthfully, statistically. I don't know if he would get up to 25 points the way Stat did, but who knows? I mean, I can't say he wouldn't, at least. And then, again, threes, he's shooting 34% to Ayton's, I think I said he was 32. So, yeah, they're right there. By your knowledge, though, he's 6'11", 234. Marvin Bagley III, that is. Could he play center in the NBA?
I mean, again, I'm not big on positions. I think you throw your best 5 guys out there, and I think you're seeing a lot of teams not having centers. I think it's more, can he guard Joel Embiid? Now, the first answer is nobody can, but, I don't see him as a guy. Can he guard DeMarcus Cousins? No. I think some of the bigger guys will overpower him, but then when you think about it, there aren't too many guys like Embiid and Cousins, It's not like the old days where everyone had a big center. So I think you could play a small ball lineup with him as the 5. Mm-hmm. But I think you'd also need another center for other times and for certain games.
Yeah. Well, Alex Len.
Yeah.
People make fun of me on here. I've always been a Len fan. I still think he'll be fine. All right, so we've got, I just want to look at the clock. We got about another 15 minutes. We can probably go 20. If you can go 20, that would take us to 6:05 here, and that'll give tip-off a couple minutes. There'll be a little bit of a window there before tip-off. We can speed through these a little bit more quickly, too, so we can hopefully get to the top 10. So Bleacher Report has Michael Porter Jr. going 5th overall. He is averaging 2 points. Obviously, he's got his... What was this? Now I'm starting to draw a blank.
No, he played... he has his back injury. He's out for the year. Right. He played like 2 minutes in his first game.
That's right.
And he hasn't played since.
That's right.
So he was one of the top high school prospects.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar, although even to a different degree than Bagley, since he's very much not a center. Positionally, he doesn't really fit on the Suns.
Yeah.
That and the back injury maybe scares you a little bit.
That's what I was going to ask. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of guys have injuries and come back fine. I don't see it being debilitating. I still see him having a long pro career. So I think he is, without question, one of the top 6 prospects in the draft. So if you're picking 6th and he's the guy who's there, you take him because he's going to be a dynamic scorer in the league. And he was a guy who, when the year started, people were talking about as a number 1 prospect.
Yeah.
So, another really good scorer. Again, obviously, since he hasn't played in college, I certainly haven't really seen him too much or at all.
Yeah.
But, he's incredibly agile, a good shooter for his size. He's a guy who's going to score 20 points a game at the pro level.
We've got a Lamar Odom reference
Yeah.
saying, now, from the Suns' perspective, though, so you're saying you take him if you're 6. If you're Phoenix, you have the 6th spot, and it's Porter. And let's say, Porter and actually this is 5 because we've got Jaren Jackson.
Well, there's one more guy I like, though, you haven't gotten to yet.
Okay. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, all the guys that you're liking are off the board, and Jackson, Porter, is available. If you're the Suns, do you risk taking? I mean, I suppose it's not quite a flyer, but I mean, he's played 2 minutes.
No, I don't think he's a flyer. I mean, this is a guy who's been the top guy, played for USA basketball. At all of the showcases in high school. This was a guy who was atop his class. Remember, Bagley reclassified late. Ayton from the Bahamas, and he hasn't always been straight with this high school class. And then Doncic international. Porter's really been the guy. Porter's been the top guy in this class, or certainly one of them. So I think it's easy to forget about him.
Yeah.
But if you read some of the articles at the beginning of the year, it was he was the guy who a lot of people thought might be number 1, certainly in the top couple. So I don't think he should be forgotten about. That being said, it's just a tough fit with the Suns when you got Warren, Chris, and Bender. And again, I think Porter will be better than all those guys, most likely. So you make the pick. I would rather have him than a lesser prospect and make other trades around it. But of the guys who I feel are the top 6, I think he's probably the worst fit for the current Suns roster.
All right. So Bleacher Report has Jaren Jackson Jr. going 6th overall. Currently averaging 11.4 points, 6.2 boards, shooting 50% from the field, 44.6% from 3. He's not shooting a ton of threes, but he's 25 of 56. Where do you think he fits into this conversation?
He's not one of them. Who's next?
Who's after Jackson?
Yeah,
I believe that is Bamba, and that's where they have the Suns picking.
Yes, that's the other guy who I think could be a great fit for the Suns. I mean, he's a 7-footer. He's got a 7'9" wingspan. I mean, just incredibly long.
Yeah.
I think at least recently he was averaging 4 blocks a game.
4.4.
I mean, 4.4 now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you talk about if you've got Jackson, you've got Bender, and then you've got Bamba, I think you can build a really elite defense and have that almost be kind of on Phoenix Suns-like, but become your identity. And then obviously Booker's your lead scorer, and maybe find one more guy who can be a co-lead scorer or a number 2 scorer along with Booker, and then Warren, of course, since we know, I think that's clearly something they're missing. One more big-time scorer. But if you have Bamba, you're just shutting down the paint. I think the Rudy Gobert comparisons are interesting, and this is a guy who is starting to learn how to shoot the 3 too, as everyone seems to need to do. So I'm not so sure what he's going to be offensively, but defensively, he already is a monster, and 7'9" wingspan with his instincts, game over. So he's a guy who, I don't know if he's probably a little bit behind Bagley and Porter overall, but he's a guy who I'd be really interested in, and I think would be an awesome fit at the center position, especially if the Suns do end up picking 6th or so, as it seems like they might, if they're outside the top 5. He's the prospect who I'd really zero in on, because I think that defensive potential, and I mean, I see that as defensive player of the year, all defensive team kind of potential. So even if you're not going to ever get an offensive star per se, which you probably won't, what he does defensively, I think would be worth it.
Yeah, it's interesting how incredibly consistent a shot blocker he is, too. In 18 games, he's blocked either 4 or 5 shots in 15 of those
That's
18
incredible. Because you've got to think that guys, there's a scouting report. You see the 7-foot guy with the 7'9" wingspan, and he's still getting those blocks.
Yeah, at such a consistent clip too. I mean, it's kind of funny if you pull up his game log to just see that line. It's almost like somebody just copy and paste. He does even have his best game of the year is against Kansas on December 29th. 22 points, 15 boards, 8 blocks.
Wow.
And then
against a really good team.
Yeah, and then even in a loss, but shot 8 of 14 from the field. He is shooting 60% from the field too. So I'm assuming I don't have his breakdown. I'm assuming most of those are from real close in the paint.
What's he shooting on threes?
20%.
Okay.
He's 7 of 34.
Okay, so that could use some work.
Yeah,
but you'd hope he eventually becomes at least passable.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and you're right though. The defensive side of that. I mean, just how incredible he is at shutting guys down around him. I mean, it's something that the Suns really. I'm trying to think. They've never really had, a very good. Forget defensive big man. Just a very good shot blocker.
Right.
Really, I mean, just that alone would be unique to be able to kind of have a Dikembe Mutombo, as I do the little finger wag here.
Yeah.
To be able to have that kind of a player would be very unique to the franchise. So yeah, and he's a guy that a lot of fans message me about. Bamba.
Yeah.
So if he did manage to add that offensive side, could he be the best big man in this draft eventually, just because of his defensive, skills?
I mean, I'm still going Ayton.
Still going Ayton?
Just because I mean, Ayton is the whole package, and he's certainly not right now as good of a defensive big man, but I think he's got a lot of the tools where he's going to be a very strong defensive center, and I don't think that Bamba has any chance of being as good offensively as Ayton. So when you consider that Ayton to me really checks every box, I'm going to take him over Bamba any day of the week. That being said, Bamba's right now certainly and probably always will be a better defensive center. So if I'm missing out on Ayton, I'm still going to be really happy to get Bamba. And what I was just thinking is this is kind of a fulcrum draft for the Suns. If you pick a guy like Trae Young or Doncic, you're going to try to become an offensive identity team. If you get Bamba, you can throw out Bamba, Jackson, Bender, and try to become a really strong defensive team with then Booker supplying a good chunk of your offense with Warren.
That's a fascinating perspective. I hadn't thought of it from that angle, and that's true. So my question to fans would then be, what should you prefer? Would you prefer to have that kind of traditional Suns fast break, 7 seconds or less, or at least purple game kind of offense?
I probably would prefer that.
Yeah.
And I think that the ceiling's just a little bit higher with a Doncic, Trae Young, because you could kind of try to become what the Warriors are offensively with the 3-point shooting and all the spacing. Whereas I think it's going to be tougher to build a super elite defense, Yeah. But at the same time, maybe if you have Bamba, you have a more balanced team. You have a guy in Booker who's such an outstanding offensive player. You have Bamba, who's that defensive player. And then I think there's 2 moves to be made this offseason. One is going to be, who do you take with what we hope to be a top 6 or so pick? Mm-hmm. And then what do you do in free agency? So it might be unrealistic, but depending on what Houston does, and if they try to chase LeBron or something like that, Clint Capella is a restricted free agent. So if you get one of the guards in Capella, you have an awesome team.
Yeah.
And I think we see point guard and center are kind of the 2 areas that the Suns should be targeting. I guess you don't like point guard in the draft. I think these point guards are worth it. I absolutely would take these guys.
Oh yeah, no. And again, I lean towards big because bigs seem to be more, they're more of the franchise changers. So, but again, I mean, like I said before, I
think these guards are franchise changers.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I see what you mean. You go back to the stat, how many point guards are the best player in a title team outside of Steph Curry?
Yeah. Well, and and that's the thing is, I've too have been on the Luka bandwagon for a long time. Excuse me, because he isn't traditional, and that's what I love about him. So I too would go Luka number one, and because I just don't, if the Suns were able to draft Steve Nash number one overall, I mean, right now I would take that, of course. But if there's a tie, I say lean big. It's almost tie goes to runner up. When I see a tie,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So real quick, speaking of guards, the other big name that comes up a lot, and he is slotted to go 8th against again according to Bleacher Report's mock draft, and that is Colin Sexton. I have a little bit of a problem in Sexton because of his assists. Now I'm not 100% positive if he plays true point or if he plays some sort of combo, with another guard. I don't watch Alabama basketball, but just kind of following stats, he's averaging only 3.4 assists, and
that's not good.
It's not good. And Bleacher Report has him slotted as a point guard, so
he's definitely a point guard. I mean, he's 6'2".
I just mean, like,
did you see the game where they were playing 3-on-5? They had 2 of his teammates.
Yeah.
They didn't have anyone left.
Yeah.
And he just took over. So I think talent-wise, he's very much a top 10 guy. I agree, fit-wise, it's not as seamless. I mean, I would rather have a knockdown shooter like a Trae Young to put next to Booker.
Yeah.
But I think as far as just a pure talented guy who knows how to score, Colin Sexton is definitely that. So for me, he is 7th on my board.
Yeah.
I would take him if the other 6 guys that we've talked about predominantly were gone. With the huge hole at point guard that this team has, and he'd be a very big upgrade over what they do have now. But
sure.
Sometimes it's tough in college, depending on the system and depending on your teammates
and the conference,
and depending on Avery Johnson might be telling him, "Hey, you just need to score points for us," and that might be what he's going for. Whereas in the pros, with better players around him, you'd hope he'd become more of a distributor than that. But I think you see all the time guys in college with pretty low assist numbers. I think it's more unusual that Trae Young has such high assist numbers.
Yeah. Do you see, in terms of a comp, I kind of see Eric Bledsoe. And I don't, I'm not quite sure that I would be able to...
that's not bad.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to pull that comp, truthfully, if had Bledsoe not been a Sun, but I look at size, I look at game, and I see a scoring guard that's a little bit of a bigger guy. I mean, he's 6'3". He's still only 190 pounds, but I mean, he can add 10 pounds pretty quickly, certainly in muscle. And, or I should say just kind of girth, but then again, his assists and rebounds are very statistically similar. 3.6 boards, 3.4 assists, and when you look at Bledsoe's best years, his assists and rebounds were also similar. And that, to me, I don't, again, he would be an upgrade. But to me, I kind of look at Colin Sexton, and I just kind of think, pass. He's just not that you necessarily can, unless they would trade out of that pick. And
but the thing is, I think we agree those top 6 are the top 6.
Yeah.
But what do you do if they're off the board?
Yeah. Well, boy, that's the thing. I don't know.
To me, Colin Sexton would be the next best thing.
Yeah.
This team very much needs a point guard. It's funny. I just looked up on NBADraft.net. Their player comparison is Eric Bledsoe.
Oh, there we go.
Nice job nailing that one.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean,
I think he's a dynamic scorer. I think he would add a new element to this team. And, having a Bledsoe who is, 19 years old, 20 years old, and not having bad knees and 2 years away from needing a huge contract, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. His 3-point shooting, very Bledsoe-esque. He's at 29.8. His 2-point shooting percentage is 53, so that's pretty decent. But it is, because of that 3-point shooting, is 44% overall. I mean, it's just kind of up and down. I see a young Eric Bledsoe, and
that's not terrible.
Oh my gosh! I hit a button. I was not looking at. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I was looking at Kevin Knox. My apologies. Let me see real quick. His 3-point shooting is 37%, so that is better than Eric Bledsoe. Oh, man, I didn't realize I hit a button. Yeah, then his field goal percentage is 44. So his three-point shooting is better than Bled, but again, his field goal percentage is somewhat similar. I happened to glance over and I saw rebounds at 5-something. I'm like, wait a second, what did I do? But, yeah, I suppose, yeah, I mean, I say pass, not that they would give up their pick, but I guess if somebody really loved Colin Sexton and wanted to move up and could offer the Suns something in this draft plus to make a trade worth it, I would certainly not be upset if Ryan McDonough considered it or obviously pulled something off. Like, I'd see Colin Sexton and I'd be like, I mean, but who knows? I certainly hope I'm wrong. Eric Bledsoe would be an upgrade on this roster, but I also look at Bledsoe and, he never, on a bad team, but he never really pulled the team over any sort of hump. So,
sure.
Which is directly an unfair thing to tie to him.
Especially, I mean, they had bad teams around. Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't all his fault.
No, and I certainly don't blame him, but I do kind of look at him as if he were such a good point guard. I feel like the team at least might have looked better on offense, and that was part of the problem with that I had with Bledsoe is the team was stagnant on offense. A lot of it was because of Earl Watson, probably most of it. But he never even averaged 7 assists a game. And for a guy that could drive, you'd figure there'd be a lot more drive and dishes. And it just seemed like there wasn't. He'd just get up and take the hit and miss a lot of kind of like 3-foot fadeaways. And it just kind of drove me nuts.
On that note, I do agree that, I mean, I would say you do everything you can to get a top 6 pick.
Yes.
So I would be trading up, whether it's the Miami pick or the Bucks pick. Maybe even one of your future picks. I ideally wouldn't want to trade the Miami 2021 pick, at least without top 7 protecting it or something like that.
Yeah.
But to me, you have to come away with Doncic, Ayton, Bagley, Bamba, Porter, or Young. One of those 6. It's an absolute must. You need that guy to be your number 2 scorer, your second best player to kind of grow with Booker. And with how good and deep this draft is, I mean, that's incredible to have 6, to me, potential franchise-type guys that whatever you do, you have to come away with one of them.
Yeah.
I'm certainly hoping that happens by being bad enough that you're right there. But I wouldn't be opposed to something like the Philly-Boston trade, maybe going from 5 to 3 or something like that,
Yeah.
And because you can't play all of these picks that they're going to have going forward.
Certainly.
So I think at this point it's solidifying that core and figuring out who is going to be Booker's running mate, whether it's an elite defensive player like Bamba, whether it's Doncic, whether it's Young to form a Splash Brothers kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's vital that you get one of those 6 guys.
Agreed. Completely agree. And
shall we rank them?
Excuse me?
Should we rank them?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me pull up a notepad.
Or, rank them by
fit.
Yeah, by Suns fit, exactly.
All right.
Want to go first?
I didn't hear you. Which one, you or me?
You want to go first?
Sure. I might steal your pick.
Okay.
Luka Doncic. I still, because of that non-traditional guard size, everything that the whole package mixed in, I have stood by. I would love Luka, but it's very close. So go ahead, and I will write these down.
Okay. Yeah, I think my number 1 as well would be Luka.
Perfect. All right. Well, then number 2, I do have to go DeAndre Ayton.
Okay.
How about
my 2 and 3 are so close as to being almost even. I guess I would go. I really almost don't know. My 2 and 3 are Ayton and Trae Young. Obviously, bring such different things. I think you couldn't go wrong with either of those picks, and I think that getting one of those 3 guys is paramount.
Well, I have you side by side right there. So you said Ayton Young. I say Ayton Young. Number 4. Why don't you go ahead and pick number 4?
I'll go. And this is tough too. I guess I'd have to go Marvin Bagley.
I'm I will
You
go.
as well?
I will actually go Bamba.
Okay.
Because I would still, I've been.
And I'm going Bamba 5.
There you go. And I think I'll flip and I'll say Bagley 5. I've probably been. If people who are watching are looking funny, it's because I'm writing this down. I've probably been Marquise Chris's biggest detractor. I love his athleticism. I'm so afraid that he's just not going to be anything special. And a lot of it has to do with his mentality. But I have faith, and I do hope that this kid, first off, that's the point. He is still a kid. And so I still have faith that he can turn out to be something special. And you've got Bender, who I really do think is probably one more offseason of training away from truly kind of becoming that player, really entering that kind of growth period that we've all been wanting to see. So I would be okay if they went Bamba to be able to then kind of solidify the defensive end and then just say, okay, Chris and Bender, you got one more year to really figure this out before we really have to start thinking about changing things up. So I say Bamba 4, you say Bagley 4, I say Bagley 5, you say Bamba 5. Do you want to make that 6th then, I'm assuming?
And then Porter 6th.
Porter?
And I would go 7th Sexton if we did 7.
Sure. You know what? I guess I would have to, but that would be, for me, I would almost say trade. Just because...
Yeah, trade up. I mean, to me, really, it's those top 3, maybe even 4 with Bagley. Because he could be such a game changer. But yeah, those 6 guys, I mean, that to me, just as good of flashes as we've seen out of this team, you need to get that additional top tier prospect. They need a second scorer so badly, or I should say a third scorer along with Booker and TJ Warren.
Yeah.
They just don't have anyone consistently. And then I think Jackson and Bender and Chris can fall into place, and then you've got a great core, and then you go from there. I think this is the last year of tanking.
Oh, I was just going to say.
I feel so strongly that, especially you look at the standings right now, which I'm pulling up, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're tied for 6th, but they're only 2 games out of 4th.
Oh, wow.
But they're also only 2 games out of 4 or 5 spots up, So it's so bunched up this year that...
anything can happen.
Really anything can happen. I think getting into the top 5 pre-lottery spot is essential. You got to get past Memphis, and maybe Dallas can pass you too, and certainly leave the Lakers and the Nets behind you.
If you are Ryan McDonough, do you strategically bench anybody for any stretches of time?
I do. I rest TJ Warren. I think what we've seen with his latest couple of injuries is when he's out, this offense is pretty dreck. Yeah. So I don't want to bench Booker. I mean, I might have him sit a couple of back-to-backs just for the hell of it, but I don't want to piss off Booker like Bledsoe did, especially with Booker eligible for the rookie extension. Mm-hmm. But Warren, I think you can accomplish a lot of the same stuff whereby your offense is rudderless without pissing off a guy who needs to sign a contract extension. Warren's here for the next 4 years after this, whether you like it or not, Yeah. And with how vital he is to the offense, I think you could strategically rest him several times, like weeks off at a time, and still accomplish your goal of losing a lot of games and not have it look as bad and blatant as it was last year when all of your veterans were resting.
Well, and the unfortunate irony about that is that he gets nicked up so much, they may never have to truly strategically do it. It'd just be like, you got a bruise, you're not playing.
and that's the other silver lining of it. I mean, the guy does get banged up so much that you're kind of saving him from himself for when you really do hope to be good. I think TJ Warren's had a great year. Oh, man. One of the more improved players in the league. I'm certainly have been very impressed with him, but I've kind of seen all I need to see from him this year, Yeah. I think before going into the year, I didn't know if he was really a part of the core. Now I think he definitely is. If nothing else, as a sixth man who can go in and get you 15 to 18 points a game and possibly close in crunch time. So I think he's had a great year, but I think that would be one of the easier ways to tank, which they absolutely need to do.
Yeah. Well, they're so close, and we're so close to the end. I mean, we're what 3 weeks away from the All-Star break. I mean, the season really, in my mind, has been flying by, especially with all the losing. It doesn't feel like it's dragging. There's so much excitement, certainly surrounding Booker himself, and then with the potentials of the draft and free agency, it really. I've been eyeing June, which sucks because I'm in Glendale, Arizona, where it hits 120 nightly. But I've been eyeing June for so long.
Lottery day this year, I think, will be a real pivotal moment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I loved your Fulcrum reference too. I mean, this truly could be the year that they move towards Golden State, or the year they move towards San Antonio. But either way, those teams win championships, so I suppose I don't really mind.
But let's be honest, the Phoenix Suns way would be going with the all offense team. Let's be honest. It would be weird if they were if they went with the best defensive guy in the draft 2 years in a row.
Well, and they tried to be the best defensive team twice. They did it under Scott Skiles, and then they did it again under Terry Porter, and neither of them were successful very long.
Nope.
Although the Scott Skiles teams were pretty good, but they are just
the Porter teams weren't.
Well,
those were still offensive juggernauts just by the roster makeup.
Yeah. Suns out to an early 10-2 lead. Yeah, we got to go. One question a fan just asked. He wants to know, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I mean, you got to bet on the Patriots. I'd love to see former Wildcat Nick Foles get it done, but it's hard to see even a really good backup quarterback taking down Tom Brady in New England.
Yeah, no, I agree. Although, I don't have that connection to Nick Foles as a Devil, but but no, I agree. You can't bet against the Patriots. So, all right. Well, Michael Schwartz, this has been fantastic. We will have you on again. Oh, wow. Somebody asked, I didn't see it on YouTube. Do you think the firing of Jason Kidd could lead to a win tonight? Actually, I think,
more importantly, the fact that Giannis is out could lead to a win, but I'm sure Milwaukee will be a little discombobulated. What I'm more worried about is whether they get the firing coach boost, which we saw the Suns get with Jay Triano, and boost themselves up the standings. And get out of the 11 to 16 range. That's what I'm worried about. Suns not keeping the Bucks pick this year. It's finally starting to look like that might happen. And with this firing, I fear that it won't anymore.
I agree.
But good chance for the Suns to help that pick tonight.
I agree. Yeah, go win and then lose a bunch more.
Then lose. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fantastic having you on. This was a lot of fun. I will save this list, and we'll see, 6 months, since 6 months, excuse me, how close we are to the actual. Well, I suppose this is our pick anyway. This wasn't a mock draft or anything. We'll do a mock draft at some point in the future, though, for sure. We can have something fun like that. So the Suns are on, so I'm going to head over to Twitter if anybody wants to follow along and tweet about the game. Thanks for having us. Oh, hey, man, thanks for coming on. Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. Oh, well, thank you. Kurt says I'm a great host, but you know what? It's the guests that make this show what it is, and it's the fans. We do this for you. We love you guys very much. I'll see you on Twitter here in a matter of moments, and unless something big happens, I will see you back here in 1 week, 6 p.m. Arizona time for Valley of the Suns Live, the weekly edition. Have a good night, everybody, and go Suns. All right. You there, Michael?
Yeah.